Sorry, Dwight.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I shot it on Super 8, and I shot it in 2006. So on some of my projects, I run a little slower. I let the film set on the shelf for 5 years to see what the natural effects would be. So you can see I'm in no hurry to finish short films. And then I had to think about it for another 5 years about the story I was going to tell. I tried to shoot it in order of what it was in my head when I was there, but then it changed and I wanted to move a few things around. But for the most part, I try to shoot to where I can't edit later. That way I don't get bogged down. There is no raw footage, basically, to choose from the story you shot. You have to edit. Then I gave Amos the raw footage and just said my instructions were that if I walked into a jazz club in 1940 and it was his club and he had all the musical knowledge of today and I didn't want any kind of period piece, what would I hear if he had every knowledge of today but it flashed back then? So, and that's what we got.
Yeah, I like it. It's fun. It was cool. It was really fun to put together. It was most of the time people don't say, "Hey, go do the weirdest thing that's in your head," and then when you show it to them, be completely cool with it and be like, "Yeah, it's great." So yeah, it was a fun process.
Dwight, you're a pretty easygoing guy, aren't you?
Try. Try to be.
Dwight is a sound man by trade, correct?
Yeah, my day job is production sound mixer on movies and TV shows. So most of my shorts, since I deal with dialogue every day throughout, none of my shorts have dialogue.
Yeah.
And my new short that I'm working on for next year is going to have one line in it, and I was even questioning that, but I do need this one line. But it was fun also just to hand it to Amos and then don't check in about it, and then just say, couple months, surprise me, and give him some money and say, go for it. And we talked about the arc of where it needed to start and then where I needed to end up, and that was really basically it.
Yeah, it was. The idea was to start with very little and kind of make it insane about right here, and then go back to the beginning because you start and end in the same spot on the film. And so yeah, I created that long piano loop, and then I had a bunch of different. There was a vibraphone. I played a bunch of cello and the weird electronic sounds, but I had some of the players. I gave them the track, and I said, like, improvise over this track like 5 or 6 times. And I then took what they improvised and I cut it into 1,000 little pieces and created what you ended up hearing. So it was wonderful. I mean, I write music for commercials and movies. That's my day job, but usually I don't get to make stuff that abstract and that just kind of sound oriented.
And I think all the musicians were in different cities, weren't they?
Oh yeah, I traveled around a lot to record people because I had to travel around a bit, but that's fun. It's nice to get together and just let people just get in the same room with them and say, okay, just play over this a few times and don't worry about what you're playing because I'm gonna cut it up anyway. So just make sounds, really. I mean, they were like the saxophone in particular. There was actually a saxophone line that I wrote that's played against the piano, but then my buddy DJ, I said, man, just do one pass that seems normal to you as a solo, and then just make sounds, like literally just make the weirdest possible sounds that you can make, and I'll see if they work. And most of them did. I like the stuff that probably shouldn't be there. A lot of the times the really raw, rough sounds of the saxophones and any instrument, like when the keys are clicking, that sound is as important to me as the saxophone solo. So it was fun to cut that up and put it together. It's like a huge puzzle piece of
Any
sound.
questions?
Yeah.
You got one right here?
What inspired the title?
I was up at my friend's apartment in Astoria, and he kept telling me, you have to come up here. I'm going to move. You're going to miss your window to come and visit. And so I was staying in that apartment. And the piece was also kind of tip of the hat to some relatives that lived in New York in the 50s and 60s. So I always wanted to go up there and make a film. And they were tied in with Radio City Music Hall. So I wanted to just make a film that was kind of a personal thank you to them from their years in New York City, you know. So if that's a true story. Yes. Oh, thanks. Yeah. 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 Well, I've going back to my love for sound, I look at everything as raw footage, and I'll record and record and record, you know, any little buzzes and stuff. And I've got a recorder right now running on a window that's wooing at the place that we're staying, and I'm just going to let it run all day and find the window woos later. But also, my goal for Astoria was that when people are looking up, I'm going to look down. So anytime I would see something that you would first look at, I'm going to look the other direction and find something in a more shadowy corner. And that camera is unique because, it looks like the film slipping out of a projector, but that camera has a loose gear in it. So it's giving you the look of the camera and the projector at the same time. So I've got 22 Super 8 cameras now that I've been picking up since 1990, and that's the only one that will do that. So, the use of raw footage, I really wanted to give it to him to react to, and then he could find the musical story. And I think without that song in there, it wouldn't make as much sense, you know. So.
Well, I did not score that to picture though. He sent me just a few minutes. And it wasn't like I sat there and was pining over. It wasn't like a typical score. I ended up just writing the track, and then the track put up against it, and it was just kind of perfect. It worked really well. But to talk about the instrumentation and whatnot that's going on, I love jazz. I've always loved it for forever. It's if I'm going to sit around, I'm probably going to listen to that. But I had just got done finishing reading a book called New Dutch Swing, and that was about this musical movement that was going on in Amsterdam in the 60s or 70s when classical musicians were playing jazz. These very unconventional groups. So you'd have drums and you'd have piano and an oboe and a cello player playing jazz, which that was not happening over here. And I thought that was just fascinating. So that's when the idea for just clashing these instruments together. But then I don't know if you could tell, but there's a big bit of electronic sounds that come in. And so, it was after I read that book, it was kind of a nice, the timing was great because I had this idea to just smash stuff together that would never be put together. I've never heard a track that has all of that kind of stuff laid together like that. Dwight did not want it to be set in a certain period. So, and the saxophone is kind of the main thing. And that, that can live anywhere. That can live today or that can live back in, the 40s. And so, I don't know, it just, everything felt pretty good together. And then to throw the cello in there, which is not I'm not playing typical cello, I'm just kind of pulling sounds from the cello, but that kind of infuses a classical sound as well to it. So it was, I don't know, it was a pretty well-rounded, you could sort of put it, you can put it in noise music really quickly, I understand, but, when you break apart all of the elements, they can live in all sorts of different places and all sorts of different times.
Stuff you got sitting on your shelf?
I've got it's a paranoia piece about coal plants coming up. It's also another little investigator movie that I'm working on with some. I bought a 1950 Buick to hide an investigator in a junkyard, and so I've got little bits and fragments that I'm slowly putting together. There's more footage I'd like to do a part 2, maybe not under the same name, but the New York piece. I had an American Express card, and I earned enough points to either cash it in for a boombox or a helicopter ride around New York City. So I went up to New York and cashed in on the New York City flight and filmed it. So a lot of the train yards in New Jersey and stuff like that. So that's going to be the surprise, the next thing.
Oh, yay. No, that'd be fine. I like it. I'm down, whatever you want to do.
But thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
thanks, guys.
And make sure you send it to us. We love programming your stuff. All right, so we have dramatic shorts coming up next. Hunter, Jay, and Black and Blue for You. So I think that it's probably time to run those right now, isn't it, Jake? Yep, we're 5 minutes over. So let's go ahead and get those started. And we'll bring up the filmmakers afterwards. We've got filmmakers from all the films, I believe. Maybe not Black and Blue for You. Unless his bond gets paid.